When someone close to you loses a loved one, what's better to say than "I'm sorry"? Some people hate this, and it's understandable. But the most comforting thing I was told after losing my dad was, "It's just going to suck for a while." After tolerating mountains of "I'm so sorry, I know how you feel. God is watching over him now. Blababatee I thought I was going to snap all over again. A dear friend held me close and told me, "It's just going to suck for a while. Life will suck for a while, but it's going to pass. Come back, pass, and come back again over and over. It'll never stop entirely hurting." I cried harder than I had since he was diagnosed, but they were tears of relief and release. Her words still comfort me almost 3 years later, but I know for a fact not everyone would appreciate it. I suppose those words are just good if you know your loved one has a disdain for repetitive pleasantries and religious explanations. Sometimes saying nothing at all and just sitting near them in silence so that they know they aren't alone is better than saying anything. Everybody is going to say to them, "Let me know what I can do for you," but the person will never ask for anything. Instead, make some suggestions. Say things like, "I'd like to bring over some food. Is there anything you are allergic to? I know a great house cleaning service that owes me a favor. What would be a good time for them to come by? You could use some me time. When you're ready, here's a pass for Amani, PD and Spa." The best thing is to listen instead of trying to think of the perfect words to make it better. When my parents passed, 12 days apart, I heard all the platitudes to the point I could blow chunks. A high school friend simply said "I'm sorry," and I found that to be the most impactful thing said to me. Sadly, at 31, I have lost my mother in 2008, my 2-year-old daughter in 2016, and my sister in 2018. If you're talking about at funerals, family gatherings etc., it doesn't matter too much. It's just a long blurry dreamlike state for a lot of people. They also know that you probably don't know what to say. They don't either. Don't be afraid to bring up good times. It hurts but it's also healing. Don't say they're in a better place, you'll meet again, they're always with you, that it gets old fast. I get why people say it, but nobody is ready for that at funerals. All they want is that person back. Save that for another day. Just say it from the heart. More often than not, the very least, you'll get an E for effort. The son of a family friend was shot and killed at a party just before Christmas many years ago. I told her that I knew damn well that there was no way I could understand what she was going through, so I wouldn't try to offer advice, but I would be there to help with things she needed to get done. Over the following couple days, I drove her around town, such as to and from the police station and to make arrangements for his body. She later told me that that meant more to her than anything anyone else had said to her. She was sick of hearing "I'm so sorry" or platitudes about what a great guy he was, and said that me treating her semi-normally, I wouldn't crack lame jokes to lighten the mood like I normally would, and just being there to help without all the bullet condolences was what helped her the most those few days. Don't say "I know how you feel." You don't. Everyone processes grief in a different way. You might have had the exact same loss in the exact same way, but your process is different from theirs. Don't assume you know what they're feeling. A year after my father passed away, my aunt called my mom to commiserate on the loss. My aunt was very emotional and said, "Well, you know, it's been a year." After she got off the phone, my mom angrily said, "Yeah, and next year it will be 2, and the year after that will be 3. My aunt wanted to mark the occasion, and my mom didn't want to be reminded. And my process was different than my brother's, and his was different than my sister's. Just be there for each other. Offer to bring them food. One of the more difficult things to do during the initial stages of mourning is to eat properly. The closer the mourner is to the deceased, the harder that is, because a series of important decisions have to be made in great haste, such as organ donation and funeral arrangements and memorial services. The rest of life doesn't slow down in the meantime. Then there's the will, or the lack of one, and the quest for important documents. There's going through personal belongings and arranging an estate sale. The less organized the deceased was, the more daunting that gets. Wedding rings and rare childhood photos turn up among an open mail. Long dormant storage lockers contain a pile of garbage with a valuable vintage science fiction collection in the corner. Then as often as not, there's at least one relative who tries to steal an inheritance while another is an overgrown child who tries to make the funeral all about themselves. It's exhausting. Tangible assistance is often sorely needed, and home-cooked food is the safest option because it's one of the things that falls by the wayside during that crush. One of my friends lost her dad a year ago. I lost mine 3 years ago. I went up to her and just hugged her, giving her a note. The note said, "You are allowed to be sad for as long as you need. Just remember to not be sad forever. Your dad would love to see you smile and be happy." She still has that note and it's pinned to her desk. It's okay not to be okay and take as long as you need to grieve. Don't let anyone tell you that you should stop grieving because it's been X amount of time. These are things I wish people, and especially my family, would have told me when my grandmother passed. Instead I was forced to move on and I never got to grieve properly. Now I'm an adult who is all ducked up. I faced this yesterday. My partner found out his friend he'd known for over 10 years passed unexpectedly. I continued to say I'm sorry, but I also scratched and massaged his head, his favorite thing, and mostly stayed quiet. Lost my brother to alcoholism and homelessness on the 20th. He was 36. I told some people but not many. I'm not emotionally able to talk about the circumstances and backstory. It's just tragic and kills the mood in an instant. Especially mine. What I found is that many people try to fill the awkward silence by interpreting something off a few things they know, and it's very often hurtful. Though well-meaning. He definitely didn't live freely. Even worse is, so did you expect it in some way then? I'm then put into a situation in which I have to correct them or answer to them, and I'm not yet able to. If you know someone who deals with something similar, offer your condolences and let them speak if they want to. And if not, offer your help or an open ear if they decide otherwise. They might get back to you once they know how to put their grief into words. Feral yell and a bear hug. When I lost my husband, the last thing I wanted or needed to hear was "I'm so sorry for your loss." Duck your sorry. I'm too angry. Hence feral yell. Bear hug cause I needed a f***ing hug. I've said this to people whose first language is not English. Me. I'm sorry about your cousin. Them. Why? It wasn't your fault. So yeah. Something else would be great. I don't know. But don't say. 1. I understand. You don't. 2. Literally anything related to look at the bright side. Even if it's just at least they had a full life. Not unless they invite you to. With their own perspective. It minimizes and trivializes their grief and loss at best. And is incredibly insulting at worst. People are allowed to feel sad, or angry, or regretful after something bad happens. 3. It's all part of God's plan. Or everything happens for a reason. If 4-year-olds dying from brain cancer is part of God's plan, I don't want to be in that plan. Bullet just happens and we as humans automatically try to look for a reason or solution. But there isn't one. Sometimes terrible things just happen and we can't control or stop it. We can only grieve and work through that. When an online friend's father died, I messaged her to offer my condolences, and then said, "Tell me your favorite memory of him." She went on to type about how he would always buy her younger self candy before their bus trips, because she was scared of moving vehicles. The candy distracted her from her fear. I miss them too. Grief is often about feeling left and lost, and simply having someone else express a similar feeling is comforting. At my mother's funeral, my best friend asked how I was doing and I replied with "I'm fine." To which he laughed in my face and said, "No, you're not. But I miss her too." It was one of the most touching and comforting moments. What I learned from my mother. Julia Kasdorf. I learned from my mother how to love the living. To have plenty of vases on hand, in case you have to rush to the hospital, with peonies cut from the lawn. Black ants. Still stuck to the buds. I learned to save jars large enough to hold fruit salad for a whole grieving household. A cube home canned pears and peaches. To slice through maroon grape skins and flick out the sexual seeds with a knife point. I learned to attend viewings even if I didn't know the deceased. To press the moist hands of the living. To look in their eyes and offer Sympathy. As though I understood loss even then. I learned that whatever we say means nothing. What anyone will remember is that we came. I learned to believe I had the power to ease awful pains materially like an angel. Like a doctor. I learned to create from another suffering my own usefulness. And once you know how to do this, you can never refuse. To every house you enter, you must offer healing. A chocolate cake you baked yourself. The blessing of your voice. Your chaste touch. I'm sorry is still a hell of a lot better than what I got, which was you're the man of the house now. It's your job to take care of your mother and sisters. It was always my responsibility to look out for them. That's what families are supposed to do. But when my dad died, the only concern people had for me was what I was supposed to do for others. Nobody went to my sisters and said they should be looking out for me. Like I hadn't just lost my father well. Never even had a real chance to really mourn my dad before I was being bombarded with responsibility. Hell, people were cracking jokes about when I was going to get married. My well-being was the least of their concern. They were only concerned with what I was supposed to be doing for others. And because of it I still feel guilty for not being better, more capable, stronger. I'm still not sure I'm not being selfish for wanting people to console me like they were my mom and sisters. Like, I'm happy people were doing that for them, but I'd have liked to get a piece of that too. My best friend passed away last year and all I get is I'm sorry. She's not in pain anymore. She's in a better place. It's all part of God's plan. etc. And I got really sick of hearing it. Instead, ask them if there is anything you can do to get their mind off it. Things like that. I can tell you that I'm sorry and indefinitely better than some God has a planet. Duck the people who try to tell you the death of your loved one and the pain you feel is God's plan. There's some stealth advantages to giving food. Food presented in a reusable dish or pan requires that the bereaved contact the giver to make arrangements for its return. That's one social contact at a time when the tendency might be towards isolation. If that contact isn't forthcoming after a reasonable time, it's not discourteous for the food giver to initiate contact. That's an opportunity to provide additional support. The dish or pan also has to actually pass from one hand to another, which is another chance for supportive interaction. Disposable dishes are convenient, but they remove a natural occasion for human connection during bereavement. I'm sorry for your loss, and any form of support are great and fine in the first couple weeks. It's the 2-3+ week mark that it's really important to just be there for them. Let them talk when they want, but also just do things that help normalize their lives. Recently lost the closest friend in my life that was more family to me than any blood relative, and after a couple weeks a lot of people who were great at the start just dropped off. But I had a couple friends who would just come watch a movie or go for drinks or whatever stuff we did before, and those are the moments that helped me get back to normal and also meant the most. I totally understand other people having issues, their own lives at hard being there, but at least in my case, and I'd expect others, a simple hey let's do something. It's been a bit exhausting with what's going on, so let's just have a normal night goes miles above and beyond. Also, please don't ask how they died. That question is so hard and so personal. What about at a funeral lineup? I can't get to the front of the line, say nothing and walk away. Active listening and validation really helped me when my friends died. People saying things like this is such a tragedy and so sad. My heart breaks for you that have to go through this at such a young age. Things like that honestly made me feel like what I was going through was valid and made me feel understood. What really upset me was when a person would look at me blankly and say I don't know what to say. That would make me feel so awkward and made me feel like I had to apologize that my grief was awkward for someone else. There is no right thing that can be said, so just listen, hug and show support. That means the world to someone grieving. Also, people rally around you in the first month or two. Please check 3, 4, 6 months down the line when the person feels like everyone else has forgotten or moved on. This will really help and let them know someone is still there and they can talk about it. IDK, I always say I'm sorry for your family's loss, which is literally just what the title says but extrema. I have free delivery on Just Eat Pizza. Even if you don't, it just makes them feel like it's not that big an effort for you, so they're more likely to accept. The traditional Jewish response is, may their memory be a blessing. This points toward asking them about their best memories of the departed. Then you listen. In the case of parents who lost a child, I thank them for the time I got to spend with their kid. This doesn't work for everyone obviously, but I thought it was better than I'm sorry because I really did get 30 wonderful years with their son and that was better than nothing. Tell me about how they were, although I'm sure this would affect different people differently. Saying nothing is the best thing you can say. Be quiet. Listen to them. It's not about you. My mother died in January. Most people didn't know what to do and said very generic things. Some people said some really helpful things and actions though. My girlfriend came and laid down with me, and we would just lay there. My old best friend came to the funeral and sat with me. There was a couple there that I had never met. They came up and talked to me and prayed with me. Even though I'm not religious, it felt really nice that they did that. Also, asking to just do something with that person so they aren't alone is really good. You don't need to talk about what happened unless they want to. You can text me or call me anytime. I'm here for you. And, of course, check in on them. In my experience, people are often afraid to leave grieving people alone, but sometimes that's just what they need. In the end, only they can fix their problems, and sometimes they just need the space to work it out themselves. If they feel lost or trapped, they will seek help, and if you make sure they know you're available, then that's the best you can do. Whenever I've lost a loved one, I appreciate it when someone says, "I'm sorry," because it gives me the opportunity to reply, "Why did you kill them?" This is suspiciously specific. You okay, Opie? After a little bit of time, take them out walking in nature. I'm dying young of brain cancer, and at first people were all over me with love. But 3 years later, I'm not gone yet. I'm not getting any better at cooking, planning, or shopping, or taking care of my yard, or getting myself to appointments. I'm still grieving what is lost already, and I'm still losing doubt in what my husband and kids are losing. What I like best is when someone drops off a pot of soup, or gets me out of the house with offering options, movie, coffee, a drive to look at the beauty, and dog walks, not asking what I want and need, because I can't really say. I can't even think of something. Grief is paralyzing, and all food is appreciated by my husband, but even more, taking him out, surfing, fishing, disc golfing, basketball, the things a regular guy would find joy in, even if he wasn't losing his wife. He needs some normalcy, I think, where they just have fun and don't even talk about me or anything painful. To the person who said spa day, yes, I did that for a grieving friend recently, and rather than giving them a gift certificate that's going to just lay around in a pile, make the actual appointment and tell them what time they have to be there, or if it's a place where you can both go at once, go together. Try to personalize it with a memory. Deceased taught me how to be comfortable in my own skin. I will never forget him/her. To this day, I still practice their advice on how to X. Let them tell you what to say. As others said, it's their loss, so they'll be the ones who will be ready to talk if they want to, and if not, respect that, and they'll set the pace on their grieving and mourning. The best thing is to do, not to say, and see what you can do for them. There's going to be so many things they're going to be burdened with, so if you can help with housework, cleaning, bringing them food, taking care of the children, etc., so that they aren't distracted or neglecting those duties, is the best thing. Never ask someone grieving or in pain if there's anything you can do. Either just offer your sympathy and move on, or just do something for them. When you ask them if you can do something for them, you mean well, but you're putting a burden on them. Now they have to ask you to do something for them, which even you just offered, is not something people are comfortable with all the time. They don't need to expend mental energy coming up with something you can do for them that they won't also feel guilty about having asked for. So just make them a meal, bring a gift, go over to their place and clean, something like that. It's one less thing for them to do, and you aren't asking them to make yet another minor decision. Don't cry, you're next. My dad just died this March. I know people didn't know what to say, but what do I say to "I'm sorry" in this situation? Thanks. What can I do for you right now? Do you want me to come over? Let's get you something to eat. Don't ask if they are hungry because they'll probably say no. Can I hug you? How are you feeling right now? Do you wanna talk? My mom said. I'm thinking of you. Do you want a drink? I love you. I'm sending you a pizza. What kind do you like? Just do something. Don't just ask. They won't know what they need half the time. So drop off their favorite pack of soda, some cookies, and tissues. The best thing that helped us was people showed up with dinner for weeks and mowed our lawn. When my wife lost her dad, before we were married, I was one of the only people outside of her immediate family that didn't say it's going to be okay or I understand what you're going through. That really meant a lot to her, because it was honest. I hadn't lost my dad and of course it wasn't going to ever be okay again. Even if I had lost my dad, that experience isn't universal. So I just told her I love you. I'm sorry you're in so much pain and that this is happening. I'll give you anything you need, including space, and then followed through. Sometimes it's also just best not to say anything. My coworker, who I don't know well but am cordial with, lost his teenage son last winter. There was a snowstorm later that week and I just showed up to his house and shoveled his driveway. Didn't knock, didn't ask, just shoveled. He did come out to thank me eventually, but if he hadn't I would have just left him be. Told him my heart was broken for him and that I'd come by later to do a second pass. Shoveling snow sucks, and it sucks more if you're in such grief you can barely move. Just remember, your good deed to help someone through grief isn't about you. So don't make it about you by forcing them to thank you for it. Just help them out. My brother had a buddy in college who became a close family friend. We're talking Christmases, parties, and always visiting siblings when he was in their respective cities. He died very suddenly earlier this year from an alcoholism-related bleed. My brother especially was devastated. My dad, a doctor, took me along to get him from the airport, and we were driving back when he said something. This is going to be harder than anything you've ever done. It's going to be impossible. But this was a disease. Okay, alcoholism is a disease. He fought it and he did not want to leave you like this. The blame is on the disease. He didn't have a say anymore. I don't know why it was comforting, but a clinical medical perspective really helped through the hell we had to face that week. At that point, he really was fighting something dark, an honest to God disease that destroyed his body. It changed my perspective on addiction, especially genetically predisposed addictions, and just how dark it can be. I miss him every day, but there is some comfort that I don't blame him for what happened. He was sick. I'm sorry for your loss. Condolences all were accepted by me when I lost my husband. What I hated was that he's in a better place. Like being with me was a bad thing and death was better. God doesn't give you more than you can handle. I didn't want to hear about God and what she had thought I couldn't handle. That didn't help the days I couldn't get out of bed. Don't ask what they need or what you can do. Just do. Bring food. Offer to do a load of groceries or take them shopping. Offer to bring over coffee. Someone grieving isn't going to know what they need. And I didn't want to be a burden. So I said nothing. I do check-ins. And I phrase it like that. Just doing a check-in. If you ask how they are doing they are going to say fine and that's the end of that. But on holidays and anniversaries the person is going to be hurting. Keep talking. Be a safe place for them to talk about the person they lost. Don't make it about you, but be there to listen. Be open to talking about the deceased. You are not reminding them they've lost someone. They will never forget, but they often will relish the opportunity to remember the person. Grief doesn't end after the first year. The second is often harder.